In the wake of a dramatic U.S. military operation in Venezuela that resulted in the capture of President Nicolas Maduro, Washington has moved to temper expectations about a swift return to democratic governance in the crisis-ridden South American nation, signaling a shift in U.S. policy focused toward security, economic interest, and a gradual, long-term process of political transition. The U.S. action, widely seen as the most significant intervention in Latin America in decades, culminated on the 3rd of January 2026, when U.S. forces ousted Maduro and flew him to New York to face federal charges related to narcotics trafficking and terrorism, charges he vehemently denies. However, senior U.S. officials, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, have stressed that restoring democracy will not happen overnight. Instead, they have played down early expectations for immediate elections or rapid political reform, citing deep-rooted structural challenges within Venezuelan society and governance. President Donald Trump, speaking after the operation, outlined a list of justifications that prioritized national interests, such as curbing drug trafficking, tackling gang-related migration to the United States, and reasserting control over oil assets, rather than restoring electoral democracy. According to U.S. officials, these objectives will shape U.S. engagement in the short term, even as Americans and Venezuelans alike interpret the outcome differently. Rubio, attempting to clarify the U.S. stance, stated that a quick return to democracy was unrealistic given Venezuela's entrenched political system, long dominated by Chavismo and its military apparatus. This view reflects a stark departure from earlier U.S. rhetoric that emphasized elections and democratic renewal as central to any future scenario. Instead, the U.S. has signaled a more cautious approach, one that relies on sustained pressure, internal reforms, and a measured timetable that may stretch beyond immediate elections. Analysts suggest that Washington is preparing for a protracted period of influence rather than a simple handoff to Venezuelan electoral authorities. Venezuela's political landscape is now marked by acute uncertainty. Following Maduro's removal, Venezuela's Supreme Court, widely seen as aligned with the previous regime, appointed Vice President Delcy Rodriguez as interim president, despite her opposition to Maduro's ouster. Rodriguez has been a controversial figure, and her elevation signals political continuity that complicates the narrative of democratic change. Many Venezuelans, particularly opposition figures, initially welcomed Maduro's removal. Opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, a longtime critic of Maduro, hailed the operation as a crucial step toward democratic reform. Yet, the absence of a clear timetable for elections and continued involvement of entrenched regime elements have created anxiety among activists and ordinary citizens alike who fear a hollow transition lacking genuine political renewal. International reaction further underscores the complexities facing Venezuela's future. The European Union has urged that any democratic restoration must respect the will of its people and adhere to international law, emphasizing that external intervention should not override Venezuelan sovereignty. Domestically within the U.S., reactions are sharply divided. Democratic leaders have condemned the operation as unconstitutional and illegal, asserting that the Trump administration bypassed Congress and international norms. They argue that the intervention, ostensibly aimed at democracy promotion, instead reflects unilateral executive action with insufficient oversight. In contrast, Republican lawmakers and allies have defended the mission, framing it as a decisive action against narco-terrorism and criminal governance. This debate underscores ongoing partisan contention over U.S. foreign policy, particularly the use of military force without explicit congressional authorization. Experts warn that Venezuela's democratic prospects will likely be determined by a combination of internal political dynamics, civil society pressure, and international diplomatic engagement, rather than quick fixes imposed externally. The entrenchment of political elites, fragmentation of opposition movements, and control mechanisms long established under Maduro present significant hurdles. Moreover, the lack of clarity over Venezuela's immediate governance structure and the continued role of figures associated with the outgoing regime complicates efforts to organize free and fair elections. Many Venezuelans remain skeptical about whether the current transition will foster broad political freedoms or simply rearrange existing power structures. Humanitarian concerns also loom large. After years of economic collapse, rampant hyperinflation, and mass migration, the Venezuelan populace faces severe shortages of basic goods, healthcare challenges, and continuing displacement. Addressing these issues may be key to any sustainable democratic renewal, requiring both domestic reforms and international support. As the world watches Venezuela's evolving situation, the United States' recalibrated message, one that plays down expectations of an immediate democratic transition, reflects a recognition of the deep complexities involved. While the removal of Nicolás Maduro marks a historic and dramatic moment, the path to a stable and democratic Venezuela remains uncertain, demanding careful political negotiation, respect for sovereignty, and a long-term commitment to institutional reform.